All right, dear friends. So today we are getting into how boundaries reinforce, influence, and work with our attachment styles, right? The point is that you have a healthy relationship now. So what does healthy relationship look like? What does it look like? So it would look like that you find pleasure in giving and receiving. You and your partner or people around you, you encourage self-sufficiency, not dependency. You have high individual self-esteem. That means how you feel and think about yourself is important to you. And it is not too much influenced by other people, right? You can express your feelings spontaneously. You do not have to think, wait all the time, whether I'm saying it right, whether I'm appropriate, inappropriate. You of course, your communication style has to be worked upon, but you can express what you're feeling without hiding them. What you're feeling and what you're speaking are in sync. You can honestly ask for what you need, and the other person can also do the same. You can experience and appreciate oneness and separateness from your partners and the people around you. You do not have to be joined in hips all the time to feel closeness. You engage in friendship and activities outside of your most intimate relationship also. Because to begin with, you're an independent person. Then again, you go ahead and have relationships because we are pack animals, right? Human beings are pack animals. We need relationships. We could not survive to a reproductive, fully matured age if we did not have support. You can discuss things, allowing for differences of opinion and compromising equally. So there is a sense of giving and receiving. This is what healthy communication, healthy relationship looks like. So what does unhealthy relationship look like, right? Since we are getting into boundaries, let's have a quick understanding of that. So you believe that you can't live without this person. That's what you think. You think that you'll never find someone else again. If you don't, you've just made a friend, or you've just made a, you've just found a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you've just got married to somebody, you feel, oh my God, now I have to stay with this person because I will never have anyone else again in my life. So since I'm a counselor and a practicing psychologist, I get a lot of people with breakups and couples with difficult relationships, but they feel that that's it, their life is over now, right? You feel that this person will be only real experience that you have in your life. You believe that your partner is there to fulfill all your social, intellectual, and personal needs. I want to repeat this point. You feel that your partner is there to fulfill all your needs, whether they are social, whether they are intellectual, whether they are personal. Now that is a lot of pressure, my dear friends. There's a lot of pressure on one person, and most people fall short of that expectation. So you feel incomplete when you're not with this person, your partner or your loved one. You become excessively involved and preoccupied in the relationship. This is what is most important. This is the central theme in your life, and everything else comes a poor second. Your personal growth, your aspirations, your dreams, your journey, everything is secondary. First is everything about this person, right? You become so excessively involved that you have very limited or no social contact outside of this relationship. So you believe that everything in your life is about that other person. When your relationship is unhealthy, this is what you believe. So do you think it is so much about creating new relationship, or is it about existing one better? What is it? Every time you have difficulty in your relationship, is it something that you don't want to deal with anymore? You want to withdraw, you want to avoid based on your attachment styles yesterday? What is it? What is it that really bothers you? Because everyone is not going to be bothered about the same thing, but we all know that we are not really always happy in existing relationships, are we? Because relationships are anyway these fragile little things that change over a period of time. So we may have got into something feeling that, oh wow, it's working for the adrenaline rush and everything is fine, I'm so well understood. And even though you have started well, after some time, things are rocky. They don't turn out to be as you thought that they would, because now partners' beliefs and values, or other people who are surrounding you, their values get out of sync, and you're suddenly not matching on everything, right? And this makes you unhappy. So individual boundaries are required here. This is where boundaries come in, because this will now is a time for you to realize whether there's self-determination and there's self-respect, or is it something that you can compromise with. So boundaries define everyone our right to keep some part of ourselves separate from the other person, because we don't really need to merge ourselves into everyone. We are individuals. We have our own space and our own growth. And how can we work in sync with others so that we make a win-win team? That is the journey that we are going to look into it today. So when individual boundaries are intact and in place, everyone can feel respected and cared for and not taken for granted, right? So what happens when they're broken? What do you feel? How do you know that your boundaries are not working? So it'll come on later in the session, but I want you to understand that if you are talking about self-respect where there's boundary, you also have to be aware of disrespect from others, right? If someone abuses you or takes the decision for you, okay, no, we are not watching this movie, for a simple thing, we are not watching this, we are watching that. We are not going out today, we are staying at home. We are not eating this, we are eating that. So if this is not a democratic process that involves everything, is there a disrespect involved? And how is the other person going to feel? How do you feel when you are disrespected? Do you feel abused? Do you feel neglected? Do you feel dismissed? This is why boundaries are needed. So yes, self-growth, personal growth requires that you begin your relationship with defining your boundaries, right? Personal boundaries are guidelines. They're rules and limits that a person needs to identify and be reasonably safe and permissibly safe, for other people when they behave with us or we behave with them. So it's like a psychological fence that's around us. And who defines it? We define it. What is our comfort level with which person? No one else can define it. Definitely not the other person. We define it, right? So if you have the psychological boundary around you, what does it work? Why do we need it? So it lets certain things into our life because we need to have relationship, we need to have communications, we need to grow, we need to learn. But whatever is not for our growth, that can stay outside. That's why boundaries are needed. So boundary violations of any sort will cause problems with the relationship. If you're comfortable with the information, with the exchange, with the energy that is flowing in, it's fine. If you're not comfortable, that is what causes problems to the relationship. So if one partner takes an action, or if someone else, your friend takes an action, or people around you take action by which you feel small, unimportant, ignored, then the other person also has to learn that this is not how relationship is going to grow in intimacy. You're not going to have a better relationship by putting someone else down. So for that, what is needed? You have to know what you value, what you think, and where you stand. Because who is going to make the boundaries for us? Just a quote to set the context in place, that lack of boundaries invites lack of respect. So if we don't like being disrespected, because it hurts us, everything that we do, it is hurtful, right? It is, we don't like it. But that means we have to take the work of having our boundaries in place. So think of boundaries like the edges, a space up to which, we can, where we feel we can be ourselves, we are genuine, we are authentic, and we have given ourselves the permission to be how we are. We actually feel and express ourselves openly. So it provides important information about whether we have given ourselves permission to express ourselves, and be very mindful of the integrity and how we are treating others as well. So it's about two-way permissions, how we can express ourselves and whether we are mindful of whether the other person also has the same permission. So we use boundaries to identify situations in which we may need to take action to help others not push beyond our own boundaries. We need to take these edges and our understanding into different situations that we face every single day in different relationships. This is why boundaries are important. Otherwise, we go around, if someone says something to us or does something that we don't like, and we do not give ourselves the permission to express ourselves in a respectful way, then we carry that discomfort, that feeling of unease throughout the day, and something is going on in our mind because and we have been hurt. We've been hurt. And depending on I hope that you've now started making connections with your attachment styles, that depending on what attachment style is there underlying and our boundaries are working or not working, we will carry it longer or not. So whose responsibility it is to set the boundaries? So it is a responsibility that each one of us has, whether we are aware of it or we are not. Most of us are not, because that's my experience. If everybody here is aware of your boundaries, great. You have my respects, because I meet a lot of people across different ages actually, and they have no clue that they have this responsibility of setting the boundaries, because the caregiving pattern around them, the people around them, the environment around them have never made them aware. So it's okay as children. Definitely, it is the responsibility of people who are around you and your environment to teach you something that will help you so much. But suppose it hasn't been done, what can you do about it today? That's where I'm coming from, because knowing and managing where we are and where others begin, that is the key to a healthy lifestyle. Boundaries help us navigate the world, right? We set boundaries to allow people to come close or keep people at a distance, physically, emotionally, intellectually. There are many types of boundaries which will come later on in this session. But understand one thing, that boundaries, they vary, and they probably should vary in terms of context and relationship. You're not going to have the same boundaries with everybody. Somebody is closer and somebody is not. So that we have to have that latitude for an honest expression that that can vary according to situations and relationships. Personal boundaries cannot be one size fits all. I have this boundary and that's it. No, it has to be something that adjusts itself according to the relationship. We may not always be aware of a boundary until someone pushes past and triggers the feeling of discomfort or anxiety or anger in us. Sometimes we don't know, this person was really nice and everything was going well. Why am I so bothered? Because maybe that they have pushed past one of your boundaries and you're not aware. It can be confusing to feel such strong negative emotions and not be aware of what really elicited them, from where did they come. So when that happens, it's very important for us to ask ourselves, have we discovered something about our own selves? Is there a boundary that I wasn't conscious about monitoring? What am I learning about myself here? Is there anything that I need to do to make sure that this person doesn't repeat that, doesn't do that? Because it didn't make me feel respected, cared for. So if you have difficulties in stopping them there, then you need to override your need to be so pleasing to others, so accommodating, right? And because maybe others, they are going to be demanding, controlling, criticizing, pushy, abusive, invasive, pleading, or even sometimes smothering you with kindness. That time, whose responsibility is to speak up? Because sometimes you just want your own space, and even if the other person is really well-meaning, you might need space. It is your responsibility to speak up. Setting boundaries. Is it a very easy task? So I have the icon right there for you to get the feeling that no, it's not, it's probably not so easy as it sounds. We need it, but not everyone with whom we are going to have a relationship sets their boundaries at the same place as us, right? I'm going to come here, you come till there, everything is fine and perfect, right? It depends on where they have their boundaries, and it depends on where we have our boundaries. So there may be people with whom you would like to be closer, but the other person keeps you at a distance, or there are maybe people that you keep at distance because whom you think that another person wants to be closer to you, right? So we will take an example and see. I mean, in real life, suppose you are at a coffee shop. It's not COVID times and it's perfect. You decide to have a office meeting or just between a few colleagues and in a coffee shop, and you're having a meeting, and some friend from somewhere, they see you and they wave at you, hi, and and then they come in and they can see that you are formally dressed, you're talking in front of people, and you say hi, and you get up and you greet the person. But what if this person doesn't like your shirt and say, hey, you're wearing that shirt that I don't like again? What does that mean for you? What if he just starts asking you questions about your personal life that you don't want your colleagues to know? What would you think about that? Would this be okay with you? Is this a situation, or could it be a situation where your boundaries and the other person's boundaries are in conflict? That's that's the point that I'm trying to make. Most people would not be comfortable, if their personal life is being talked about in front of their office, who don't need to know about it at all, right? When someone oversteps your boundary by coming too close, it's important to provide feedback to the person about their behavior. That's the point, right? So setting boundaries and having others honor them is easier said than done. I'm aware. I do this work with a lot of people across ages. So, but it still has to be done. If you want beautiful, joyful, healthy, adventurous, happy relationships, it has to be done, right? So why is it hard? So I want to put this there and get it out of the way so that we all can be a little kind to ourselves when we are doing this work. Somehow, because of culture, because of our attachment styles, our parenting, our environment, we somehow at times we put others' needs and feelings first. Then, of course, the next point, we don't know ourselves. We don't know what we want. We have been always told how to think, how to act, how to behave. So we think that's it. We are not in touch with our feelings. We are not in touch, and we are not cued in with what is working for us and what is not working for us. Sometimes we feel we don't have the rights, like especially in Asian homes where where parents obviously take more rights and privileges, and the child is totally ignored. But it is not only here; it's across the world. So I've traveled widely, and I don't think the problems and the rights are only country specific or culture specific. They're everywhere. Sometimes we are not aware ourselves what our rights are, and of course, because of our communication styles and not being able to give ourselves the permission, our attachment styles, we believe that if we set boundaries, our relationship will be jeopardized. So there is a a fear. There's a fear that, things may not work out, things may not stay in the same place if we try and set boundaries. And more often than not, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. But it can get better. You can feel better, because there is something called ripple effect in spiritual science. We always call it, even, just imagine a beautiful placid lake, and you throw a pebble inside, and there's a ripple from that point where it has fallen, and it goes on till the time it touches the shores, right? So if you change at any point of time, I really, really very firmly believe in the fact that if we change, things around us change. If we choose higher vibration, if we choose self-respect, and we choose clarity, it can only work out for a healthier relationship around us. You have to try and see for yourself. But does that mean that it'll not cause you discomfort? No, it will. But if you stay with it, things will go somewhere else. What are the three kinds of boundaries? Rigid, too closed. Porous, too loose. You can imagine, I like the visualization of, imagine a house where there are no gates, and they're open. It's thrown open. So now cows can come and graze, the dogs can come and pee. It's open. Anybody can do anything. Right? Flexible. These are healthy boundaries. Neither too close nor too open. So I have a picture of a cell membrane, a cell, human body cell there for a reason. Because I believe flexible boundary is like a cell membrane. It gives shape and structure to the cell, protects it from its surrounding, while it also selectively allows other things, to not come in between for its own survival. How human beings have the perfect skin. The science hasn't yet been able to find something that is able to keep out water and all the things that we don't need, and allows the things, but it still breathes. It allows a lot of other things. Whatever we need, it allows that to come in, and rest of the things are not allowed, right? So imagine a healthy boundary to be like that, a flexible boundary to be like that. So learning to manage our boundary is a necessary step towards befriending that inner child. Remember, we talked about it yesterday, befriending that inner child, our inner self, so that we know what is it that's working for us. When we understand our own boundaries well, we know that we will have separate feelings and thoughts and perceptions from other people. Our boundaries will be our unique perception, our experiences, which make up of who we are and how we understand the world. If the universe wanted us to feel the same way, he would have joined us all in the hips, and we would be one big blob of mass feeling, thinking, being the same way. Why are we separate individuals experiencing life in different ways? So if we have healthy boundaries, they also will determine who we are in our relationship with others, and who we are deep inside ourselves. So this is a beautiful. For me, having a healthy boundary is spiritual need to have your own personal growth and evolve and be the unique person that we all have the potential to be. It's a big spiritual learning as well. Yes, it's technical. I'm taking a workshop on it, but it allows growth and expansion. For me, it's a beautiful thing to aspire for in every single relationship. And we keep getting better with practice. I can't resist saying that. So what does rigid boundary look like, right? So rigid boundary are people with a walled up. So if you want relationship with them, it's like banging your head against the wall, right? It's like having a fort wall, and someone has to go around looking for the trap door to get in somehow. So these are the people who want control. They will often shame people for questioning their authority. They generally feel scared and cheated and manipulated, and rather so they will avoid intimacy and close relationship. They would rather avoid it than accept that bad things sometimes just happen and you have to learn and get over it. So are you now making connection with your attachment style? Is something that I'd like you all to pay attention to, right? So these are the people you're not comfortable asking for help, because you believe that your ideas and your techniques are superior, right? You're after all, you believe in your own authority, you don't like people question your authority. And resultantly, you have very few relationships. How many people will tolerate your authority? Of course, there has to be a payoff for them. Otherwise, nobody's going to do that. They have to be dependent on you. So what kind of attachment style and what kind would be underlying bedrock of this boundary? I hope you're getting there. So scared. So they're basically scared inside, right? So they feel that if they expose themselves, it's a weak spot. Their weakness might be caught. They have to hide their weakness at all costs, because you cannot be genuine, you have to be authoritative, you have to be in control. Even when the smallest thing is rejected, they fear that, oh God, that's it. Now all my authority is lost. Lost my respect, I lost my control, so this need to be perfectly in control is very, very important for people like them. It's very difficult to live with people like this, so they're very protective of personal information. So they will sometimes use guilt or manipulation also to maintain control. They're jealous because they feel weak inside, so they're not open to feeling. So they could also be a little jealous, and because they feel that if they allow people their self-expression, they are losing control in a relationship. So they may seem detached. Even with romantic partners, they may feel a little detached, right? So extremely they're uncomfortable with something unfamiliar. They have to be in control all the time. So they want to know everything ahead so that they don't look foolish in any way. So it's better to keep the other people at distance, not get involved very closely, because they get so upset when somebody says no outside their approach and their plan, right? So what does this person look like? They look like distant, detached. They lack playfulness, they lack empathy. It's their way or the highway. Their identity is very crystal clear all the time, and it never changes. It is like that only. Whatever they said, that's it. So there's a saying in Hindi, "Patthar ki lakeer," it's a line written in stone. That's it. You can't rub it off. Nothing can rub it off. So they are rarely open themselves or to different relationship people who are different from who they are used to. So as teachers or people, and we all know people like this, right? So as performers, they have trouble growing and changing throughout their life, since they don't allow their own belief systems to change. Everything is either black or white. There's no shade of gray in between. Remember, life is in continuum from one extreme to the other. But these people, they live at the edges. When things turn unpredictable, they really don't know how to take it in stride. So having a rigid boundary is spiritually, personally constricting, because it doesn't allow expansion. Let's look at the next kind of boundary, porous boundaries, right? So a rigid boundary will not, they don't like sharing personal informations, right? So porous boundary, what does it mean? That anybody can come and go, right? There is a gate, but it has a flow use, everything around is there. I like that picture, it kind of perfectly explains what I wanted to say, that these are the people who will overshare their personal information. I ask you, hey, what did you have for breakfast? So you will not only tell me what did you have for breakfast, you will also tell me what you had at dinner, and you'll also tell me what you had for lunch yesterday, right? So, and I was just trying to, do an icebreaker and just start a conversation, right? So you're getting the picture. They have difficulty saying no to other people. They will never question the other person's authority. Very, very afraid to contribute to ideas, fears that if their idea is rejected, they will lose the human connection. So you get nervous or you get upset when you're asked to make a decision because they're not used to taking responsibility, right? So you hate taking charge, right? Let someone else take my responsibility with no idea or clarity of identity or needs. They have very difficult in making genuine connection with other people. But they are over involved with other people's person. They will connect on many service levels. They will run around and do one thing for another person, another thing for another person, and they'll go around doing things for others, but they will not make connection with themselves. They cannot get into deeper connections because they don't get in touch with their own values and belief system. It is so much about the other person that there is no space about themselves at all. So they're dependent on other people's opinions. What they think, if they approve, fine. If they don't approve, they die. Connection with the attachment style? Anxious? Terrified of losing human connection, even when that connection is detrimental to them. This is why so many people stay in abusive relationships. Because you would rather have the security of that relationship than take the responsibility of managing your own emotions. And, grow up. I almost said man up, and then I realized, no, it's not man up. It's woman up, and it's man up, and it's everybody up, right? So I like that, that we have to grow up inside ourselves to not be accepting of abuse or disrespect. So these are the people who expect others to fill their emotional needs. They are not in touch with themselves. So someone else has to tell them, So this is a psychological term for it. It's called codependent. You want someone else out there. You have this beautiful picture of, life where you are lost and you are part of one puzzle, and there's someone else out there who's part of another puzzle and who will come and complete the picture for you, make you whole and complete. Little realizing that we are all complete in ourselves. We are part of that universal energy which is complete in itself. We fear others when we don't comply with them, believe that their ideas are not as good as others because for many reasons, either they haven't been given permission or they have not taken permission, or they actually believe it, that their ideas are not good, right? So they feel that they have nothing to contribute and they want someone else to keep in control. I already mentioned that. You get a good idea about what POTUS boundary looks like. The main point is their identity is very fuzzy. So all the time they are attached to others to give them that sense of identity, fulfillment, happiness, meaning, purpose. It is not about them so much as it is about others. So now that we know what rigid and porous looks like, let's see what flexible looks like, right? So these are the people who value their own opinion. But they share the contribution and control also. Right? They will seek out guidance from trustworthy people who have more knowledge and more experience, and believe that people with less knowledge and experience also have the wisdom to share their experiences. Everybody need not be an expert in everything, but they have something of value that they can offer to others. We all have it. So these are the people who would incorporate what they have learned from others in ways that would honor their own personal needs and their own boundaries. So they will, yes, they will contribute to ideas, they will take risks, they are able to set aside their idea for trying someone else's idea. They're open basically. So they are willing to take responsibility for their actions and make it right when they experience failure. They're okay to take the risk and they're okay to deal with the failure because that's the only way to grow, right? So they will not compromise value for others. Identity is clear, but it's flexible. They're willing to listen to others, take whatever that works for them and leave whatever that doesn't. right? So they make plans and actions without being asked. They're okay to take initiative, but they're willing to change course and include others if that's what's for the benefit of the larger good. They're open to feedback. They will incorporate it if it works. So they are nurturing. They nurture relationship with people who are similar to them, family, friends, students, people, because they know that what is actually similar, what is actually adding value. And when we allow other people to add value to us and we add value to them, we can all grow together. It's a win-win. So these are the people who will share personal information inappropriate. It's not over or undershare. Not everything is about them. They don't have to have their way all the time, or they don't need anyone else to be in control all the time, right? So they also remain open to connection with people who are different from them and allow themselves to grow over a period of time. So to be able to be open, what do you need to know? You need to know your personal wants and needs, and you have to be ability to communicate them. So I know I'm probably sharing a lot of information, but these are the pointers that you can take and see how you can work with yourself, and seek out help if you need to, because that's what flexible boundaries are about. So they are the people, they take risks, so they're okay to say yes even when they're afraid, and they're okay to say no when they don't want anything. They're accepting when others say no to them as well. So you can see the attachment style here is very secure. So they remain open to connection, they respect other people's boundaries, they respect their own boundaries, and they don't allow shame to shut them down from making future decisions and actions. If someone says no to them, that's not the end of the world. It isn't, right? So, so you do not allow someone to shut you down because you're confident. So this is what a flexible boundary looks like. I like that thinking of flexible boundaries like a cell membrane. It allows whatever it needs to grow and be a healthy expression of itself, and keeps all the toxic things outside. And it is a skill that we need to learn and take responsibility for and practice it every single day, because it is tested every single day. And if it doesn't, wow, great, awesome. So what happens when we are dealing with people who are higher in hierarchy with us? Do the same boundaries work? Boundaries are the same with people your age or your status, or in families, or is when the hierarchy is different, what does boundary, how will it look like? So there has to be a different rules of engagement there. So this we have to have, you know, different boundaries where the hierarchy is different. Without boundaries, we will allow ourselves to be triggered and behave negatively in response to the other person, or the other person may do something that is in reaction to us that we did not really, and we cannot explain why that really happened. So to avoid conflict and dissatisfaction, we have to remember that where relationships are defined in part by hierarchy, say in office, and you know, your boss and you, and there's a difference of authority, someone has a higher authority and you have a lower authority. In these instances, the rules of engagement, they have to be conduct appropriate. In roles of what are the behavioral expectations of the people in various roles that we are dealing with. That means these rules of hierarchy should not eliminate obligation to yourself to monitor and manage your boundaries, whatever is the rules. So if your boss says that, okay, you know what, I have some work, please adjust and stay back and finish whatever it is I'm doing. Okay, one day you'll do. But what if it becomes a pattern? So not only do these rules give all the higher rank, if you do not have your boundary in place, anyone who is a higher rank than you gets the permission to violate or abuse your boundaries. Especially if you're low rank in the hierarchy, right? So without clear understanding of our boundaries, these relationships are going to be very unsatisfying, and they feel confusing and scary and also overwhelming. You do not know how to deal with this. Someone who's unreasonable, how do you deal with it? And you're dependent. I mean, after all, it's a job. I mean, but how do you deal with people? So you deal with figuring out, how did you allow that boundary violation? So let's look at some of the combination that can happen between people of boundaries, and let's see. So what if the boundary combination is rigid and porous? One person is rigid and the other person is porous, right? Here one partner or somebody has higher authority, and others uh, is a sponge. You do not have that much authority. It could be in an intimate relationship, it could be somewhere else. So what happens? A will generally brush B's opinion aside and fear that, allowing their input will make them flawed or weak. Remember what rigid boundary looks like? They don't like sharing authority. And B, if they are, porous, they prefer not to state their opinion. So it works out. The perfect parrot, you take all responsibility. I'm going to sit here I'm going to just keep quiet. You take everything. It's a very ego building scenario for A, right? And a perfect hiding space for B, who's terrified of speaking up. And since this is working for both, A constantly plants seeds of fear about any options outside of his or her recommendation. So whatever it is he's saying, that's the best, right? So and if B tries to do anything on their own, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. I'm sure we know many people, many relationships where this work, not only in work scenario, but in personal scenarios in our homes as well, right? In the long run, this may work. This rigid porous boundary, it may work for some time, but eventually after a few years, it plays out its usefulness. If we have not taken the responsibility of getting in touch with what is healthy for us, we are going to be miserable. We are going to be sick. And it could be physical, it could be psychosomatic, it could be anything. And this replays outside. I mean, we are going to, because we have denied ourselves permission so much, it is going to come out in different ways. We are going to be miserable. And if we are miserable, people around us not going to be happy. So this doesn't play out well either for A or for B in the long run. Both are unhealthy. Another rigid, right? This is a battleground scenario. Both people know what is the best and they're waiting to put the other person down. There are a lot of, and it could be at work, it could be at home. So shaming by one person or manipulating by other person is only going to meet resistance from the partner. And if separations or fights happen, they are very loud and they're very ugly, because the conversations are in an endless string of one up and tearing down. A pulls it because I said so, and end of the story, and B will blow up or shut down. So things go bad, angry finger pointing happens, and both will continuously blame each other, and they're definitely not working together, not a team. And what if it is porous and porous, right? Oh, so it's like, I like this thing, life is out to the sea with no rudder. You're a boat which is floating and you're at the whim and fancy of the sun and the breeze and the air, and both passively push and the other to take charge by playing, by avoiding choice making. And if ideas are presented, they are neutral. Neither person is willing to decide because they don't want to be responsible for any bad ideas or bad outcome, and then they don't want to be reminded that, oh, you did it before. So, one or the other person will probably lie, to the other, and when they are caught, they don't know how to deal with it. So both are afraid to offend or lose connection, even when the connection is very thin. The separation is going to be passive because none of them are willing to take responsibility, and they will lie, and they will say something totally different about why they are lying, why they are ending the relationship, but they'll just keep quiet. Very unhealthy. Both of them, none of them have actually grown in this relationship or added value to themselves. So, right. So, what does, okay, so forward progress is impossible in this scenario because relationship is stuck. And then when the separation happens, it is very passive. That was the last point. But what happens in the flexible scenario? That would be an ideal thing, right? Secure relationship. So when both are flexible, both partners are flexible, or relationship between two friends are flexible, or between a boss and you are flexible, forward progress is ideal. One understands that the less experienced and less knowledgeable people will still have great ideas. And when you are lower and in the hierarchy, you also know someone else's experience and knowledge can take you to wonderful places that you would never be able to reach alone. So it works very well in every scenario, not only in partnerships. So in a healthy cycle, the feedback exchange happens. One learns from each other. Both take responsibility for their part of the progress. So if you have made a plan and it has failed, you can mourn together, and new plans can be made with the learnings from this plan. So they leave room for uncontrollable circumstances. What if things go out of the way and no one was responsible? And they don't have, I mean, it was beyond your ability or choices. There is room for that. So you encourage each other all the time. They share caring and connection, and you encourage them to have other healthy connections with other people. So not only with you, but you're open that they keep growing for their own purpose of personal and professional growth. Both pull their weight and influence in the direction of progress, not only in the relationship, but also personal. So they're not putting each other down. So if any one person decides to end the relationship, they would be able to communicate very clearly. Of course, if you get a better job, aren't you going to leave this one? Yes. So even if there is sadness, the others knows that it is impossible to supply everything that one person needed. If anyone is getting a better opportunity, it is good for them. So it's sad for me, I'm losing, but they need to go, they need to move on. So the relation need can be met by in a way that the other person needs it, right? So when you have a rigid, a porous, or a flexible boundaries, where are they used? I'm now getting into the part where they are actually used in real life. Physical space and physical touch, right? Your boundaries work in this space. Whether you have it or not is going to decide a lot of things for you. The physical boundaries define our comfort zone. They determine how close we want others to come to us. This includes who, how, or when we will allow a person to touch us, right? Extreme physical boundaries, I mean, violations could be, there is abuse, there's physical violence, there's robbery, or there's incest. That is extent, I mean, that is an extreme physical boundary, but that's also boundary violation of physical space. So it is very difficult always for a person to give a feedback to the abuser or the other person that will end in behavior change, right? For children, definitely it is impossible. The power equation is so skewed that giving a feedback is out of the question, right? But if you are aware that this is not about you, if you were not able to deal with it when you were a child, you can deal with it now. And you can take care, you can parent your inner child. So suppose when you were a kid, or when anybody that you know was a kid and their family member or someone they knew inappropriately touched the child. Now imagine the progression of how it has happened, right? The child actually wants to say no, but doesn't have the power to say no, right? It keeps thinking, do I have the power to say no? What if I say no? Will I be believed? And God forbid if the child talked to somebody and they laughed it off, no, you must have misunderstood. The child does not know how to defend itself. Now it starts having poor physical boundary. Now it does not know when they grow up that other people are not supposed to touch you without your permission now, right? So the child hasn't learned to recognize danger for itself. So unconsciously, the child is now in a place where they can be repeatedly abused or violated, right? So such thinking represents, how if you haven't been taught about it, if you don't know about it, you can now learn If no one has taught you before, now you can learn. What is a normal? What is a healthy development pertaining to? So, physical boundaries is about your personal space, privacy, and body. You get to decide with whom you are going to shake hands and with whom you are going to hug, and when. And how do you feel about loud music or locked doors or nudity or any rules inside your house, or when you're going to sit and who's going to talk to you in which way? You get to decide that. So they include your needs for personal space, your comfort with touch, your physical needs, and it's also needs like rest, food, and drink, right? What if you're walking with a group of people and they tell you, no, 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 you can't rest now, but you know that you need to rest? It's okay to let people know that, you're hungry or you need rest and you need a break. It's okay. Physical boundary violations, they feel like receiving not only inappropriate touch or being denied your physical needs, it also, it denies you your the permission to stop people from coming into your personal space. If it's making you uncomfortable, go ahead and assert yourself. Entering your room without a permission, or you're doing something and people come and disturb you. So it can be, it's again is on a spectrum from between mild and severe. So severe would be personal abuse, and minor would be some violations. But the idea is to give yourself permission for your logical needs, your space and your touch, what you would like, and also make you aware what other person does, right? So physical boundaries, the first one. Next is intellectual boundaries. This applies to your thoughts, values, ideas, opinions. So if someone tells you you don't know what to think, you have no idea. So it's the same as saying to the person that they don't have any values. Our perceptions are a function of all that we have experienced, and they represent a sum total of what we have learned about the world. And if someone tells you that your perception has no value, it's very hurtful. So when an adult tells a little child that you're wrong, will the child learn to trust their own perception? And it's especially damaging when people important to us deny a painful reality like this, and especially when they were probably physically touched or physically abused. Now someone else now tells you, well, you are wrong. So how it can multiply? I'm taking an extreme example just because we are short on time and we have to understand everything. But we can take another example. Suppose a child sees their parent in a fight, and the mother slapped the father or the father slapped the mom, and then they see the child is watching and they say, oh, no, 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 it's nothing, I mean, it's just a fight and it was fine. And can you imagine the conflict going on inside the child, because her own body is telling that they're afraid that daddy was scary or mom was scary, and but the other partner is saying, no, it was okay, it was normal, aisa to hota hai, this happens. What is the child supposed to do when they grow up? Are they going to learn that this is okay or it's not okay? Because it's harmful for the child, right? Because they cannot trust their own perceptions. So again, coming back to attachment styles, adults are important to children. So depending on the attachment style, they will learn boundaries. And depending on the boundaries, they're going to have relationship. So when an adult tells a child that their feeling or thoughts or aspirations are not important, where is the rest self-respect going to come from? Right? So this is a perception, your intellect, your thoughts is a perception which is unique to you, right? So you are going to decide whether how other people are going to treat you. And when you ask a question like, how could you treat me like that? In reality, your emotional comfort zone is more important than anyone else's. We have to decide what is our, where is the comfort zone for us? Where are we feeling that we are respected and understood? We all have our rights to our own perception and feelings. Your comfort zone is no more important and definitely not more less important than the others, right? So if you become highly emotional, argumentative, defensive, signs of weak emotional boundaries, because others can they have their opinion. Are you getting too affected by that and getting argumentative or getting upset or you're getting angry? Can you listen with an open mind to someone else's opinion without becoming rigid or combative? Things to think about, because intellectual boundaries refer to your thoughts, ideas, curiosity. So healthy intellectual boundary would include respect for those ideas from other people as well, right? And do you shut down when they have violated your thoughts and curiosity, or dismissed you, or belittled you, or disrespected you? So healthy intellectual boundaries means considering whether um, it's a good time to talk or not about something. So you would, if you don't take permission, okay, are you ready to discuss this now, or is it just your need to talk about it and get it out of the way? So it's important to learn and recognize the difference between healthy and unhealthy time to talk. And sometimes people share things that make you very uncomfortable: racism, homophobia, sexism. Then you have a right to stop it right there. You may not want to be a part of that kind of conversation, and it works for you to distance or cut off that. You do not have to have an intellectual discourse with someone who is violating you and other people. Be aware of that. So emotional boundaries now that we have looked at: physical, intellectual, emotional. I can't stress more about emotional boundaries. I deal a lot with people's feelings, because they tell us, right, which emotions are ours and which are not. So what are emotions? Emotions are the internal events that are triggered in response to something that happens in the environment outside. So in itself, feelings and emotions are not good or bad. It is what we feel. They could also be telling us about a threat level that we may have assessed in the system, right? So if we are anxiously attached, our threat level, maybe our threshold level must be really low. We get threatened very easily. If we are securely attached, threshold level is high. We don't. So we may or may not be aware of the threat or emotional response to it. Yet the trigger and emotion both exist. Response is here, trigger is there. We can be quite aware of the emotion, and be completely aware of what the trigger was. Sometimes that also happens. You don't know why you are so angry, but something there in the trigger, has triggered you. So what do you do in that case? So be aware that your emotional boundaries are crossed when people dismiss or criticize your feelings. They ask you questions that may or may not be appropriate for the relationship, right? So what if someone tells you, your feelings are not justified? Explain what you're feeling. You feel what you feel. You will explain if you want to. But if someone tells you it's not right to feel anything also, is that okay? Can someone mind read us and tell us exactly how you feel? That happens all the time, right? So if others are telling us all the time the way you're feeling, and some people, if you're not ready to listen, not ready to talk, but their need to talk is so hard and so high that they will keep dumping emotionally. They will use you as a dumping ground. So all the time in certain groups, you will see that there are 2 or 3 people, they talk all the time. So their need to be the center stage, perhaps is so high that they take charge even when you don't want them to be. So be aware. Otherwise, you will get emotionally dumped upon all the time. And so I have another thing for all the parents between us. Sharing inappropriate information with your children is also violating their boundaries. If they're children, they don't have the capacity for the full range of emotions. And you start explaining complex things, that person said this to me, so this happened. And you think that you're being friends with your children. Yesterday, we did this style of parenting, permissive parenting, where you think that uh, somehow you do not have to parent your child, but you have to be their friends. They have their friends. They need a parent. Let's be very, very clear in our own minds. So after physical, intellectual, emotional boundaries, we have sexual boundaries. So this is about emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects of our sexuality. So how are we going to have healthy sexual boundaries if we don't have healthy physical boundaries or intellectual boundaries, is a question that I'm very comfortable about, but it's a thing in itself, and it happens in sessions only because it's protected information. But this includes healthy sexual boundaries would include consent, agreement, respect, understanding of preferences, desires, privacy, your comfort level with sexual touch and activity, and what, where, when, or how, and with whom, you want to get sexual. Material boundaries. Yes. This is about money and possession. So it is healthy for us to understand that you cannot share and cannot be expected to share everything that you have. It's not possible to share everything that we have. There are limits to which we can do this, and having those limits on your material items are considered healthy, and it prevents resentment over a time. So if someone has asked you for money, you may help them once, twice, but they make a habit of it, then what? It's good to say them, you know what, we can't give you any more money, we would be happy to help in some other way, right? So material boundaries are violated when you borrow, your things are borrowed, destroyed, stolen too frequently, right? And if they are also used to manipulate and control relationship, that's also when this is. So I like to quote Brené Brown, who says, clear is kind, you have to realize that you have to have very clear boundaries, very clear. So if it is clear, that's great. Next, we have time. How a person uses time, how you use your time, and how other people use your time is about this boundary. So I remember I talked about that example where your boss says that you have to work late today. You know, if he requested, it's a different matter. But what if he stated that you had to comply because he was the boss? What if he didn't even acknowledge that you would, you might have other obligations, right? So this is outside your regular responsibility and time. So if he believes that he can make decision about how you will allocate time for the work that he has given in the last moment, is that okay? Do you feel all right? Does he have the authority to commit your personal resource? Time is your personal resource. Or do you only you have that? Because I'm very, for me, this is a touchy time. How people treat my time is very, it's a touchy point for me. So I'm very aware of this boundary when other people do it. How are you with it? Because understanding your priorities is about, is very necessary to have this boundary well. Your time is valuable, and it's very important to protect how it is, utilized. And it's very important to have it at work, at home, and also in social places, so that you're not overcommitted. So what are the things that you can say? For example, someone who says, no, no, please wait, don't go, please wait. You know what? I can stay only for an hour. I would love to help, but I would be overcommitting. Can we make some other time? So if you have personal commitments, you know what? We have family time in the evenings. Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot make it. I can't do your work for you. And this has happened to me so many times that people have asked me for my time, but they don't want to pay for it. So in personal sessions and other things. So it took me a bit of time to learn myself. So I know how much practice this needs. That, you know what, I'm very happy to help, but my hourly rates are so much. So because violated time boundaries look like asking for professionals for their time without paying them, right? So you're demanding time from people and keeping people in conversations or tasks that no longer are necessary or even useful to them. You show up late, you cancel things in the last moment, and you contact people at a time when they said that they are going to be unavailable. This is all about time boundaries. And finally, spiritual boundaries. These relate to your beliefs and experiences in connection with your own higher self, or God, or universe, whatever you like to call it. So many boundaries that we have. So our being, there are three types: rigid, porous, and flexible. And there are so many different kinds of boundaries where these are used. And if we are not flexible, we come out of feeling violated physically, intellectually, emotionally, sexually, where our time is concerned, and of course, spiritually. So when people push or cross our boundaries, the signal is that we are distressed, we are anxious, we are angry, or we are confused. So do we know when our boundaries are being crossed? How do you know? This is it. I'm repeating it again and again because I'm asked this question so many times. How do I know that my boundaries are being crossed? Because if you think that you cannot say no without being, disagreed or punished for saying no, or you're not allowed to feel what you feel that you don't have any private space to be yourself. So those are the time that you know that some part of your boundary is being violated, right? Because somehow it helps other people to have us adjust all the time, right? So if because we are in love, I have to adjust all the time. Because we are in a family, we must do everything together. Because we are in a relationship, so now you can't have any personal time doing anything else with anyone else. So that means that we have to do the same things, we must think the same things, have the same opinion, have the same emotion at the same time, act in the same way. Separatedness is not is not acceptable. That doesn't work in the long run, right? So boundaries are needed because they are measure of your self-esteem, and they set limits for acceptable behavior from those around you. You know, whether they feel that they can put you down, make fun of you, or take advantage of you. Because if you have weak boundaries, they're going to leave you vulnerable, and you're going to come out feeling angry and resentful, sometimes even damaged by others. So having healthy boundary means knowing and understanding what your limits are. They they let us trust our own perceptions of the world, and they tell us what we can trust and what we can see and what we can hear and sense and act on it is really what something that is beneficial for ourselves. And when we can do that, we can do that with others as well. Because that's reliable information about what is going on, so that we can trust ourselves and respond effectively. Because after all, we have an intellect, we can use it. So what does the work, now that we have learned so much about boundaries, what does the work ahead look like, right? So that you can switch boundaries depending on who you are with and how the other person's boundary is presented. Are you able to do that? Because that is how flexible boundaries would look like and feel like. So there's one thing that we have to learn very quickly is that there is an error and there's a violation in boundary. Error is when sometimes crosses a boundary out of ignorance. They did not know. That's a boundary error. The other person does not know. It's our job to educate and tell and give them the information. Please don't do it again. But what if it is a violation? Is different. A person disregards your boundary even when after you have told him about it. Difference. You will, if someone makes a genuine error, you will give them information. Next time they ask your permission and they do it. And what if they do it again? Then what do you do? Violation is an intentional act that crosses the line. So that's an important part of assuming responsibility for teaching people is how to teach them how to treat us. And for that we have to be okay giving feedback about the impact of their action on us. Because if act is error, the person gets educated. If act is a violation, it reminds them that, you can't do this and you have done this before, and they insist. And you have to insist on honoring your personal limits. And the point is that these are very difficult conversations most of the time, right? But this is something that benefits you and the other person at the same time, depending on your attachment style. Avoidant, anxious, disorganized, secure. You will make time for this or not, because this benefits your own integrity and your own health of the relationship as well. So what are the 3 tasks? Again, I'm back to the numbers, right? 4, 4, 3, 3. Okay, 3 tasks here. The first is to learn to defend yourself against unwanted intrusions of other people. You know your boundary and you don't want intrusions there. Second is to learn how to deal with the people who are crossing the boundary, right? Which causes them to back off or leave you alone. But what is the most difficult task? Learning how to recognize and become aware that you are being intruded upon in the very first place. And if we have weaker attachment styles or disorganized, anxious, it takes us a lot of time to realize that, oh my God, this is why I'm feeling bad. This is why I'm feeling frustrated. This is why I'm angry. So, right? So you have to decide that you are a worthy person who does not deserve to be invaded or treated badly. So until unless you master this knowledge, in fact, the last two, until unless you master the last two tasks, knowledge of the former is not going to do you much good, right? This much we have to do. So what is the key? Self-awareness, of course, right? But self-awareness at what cost? Sometimes we really need help with this. Not just working on ourselves alone in silence does not help. I would encourage finding your tribe in terms of people who can actually help you grow, right? So porous boundary work, what would it look like? If you have a porous boundaries at times in relationship, you have to acknowledge that your idea is also of value. When you know that it is better than the other person's idea, you have facts to back that up. And you have to allow yourself to respond to praise and encouragement that make you special and that make you unique because you are worthy. And you have to take this requires challenge. This requires a little bit of support. I know I'm saying this all in one slide, but this is probably a 6 to 8 month work, but I would encourage you to invest that in yourself. Take every opportunity to make a choice. Challenge yourself slowly. Participate in activities that scare you a little. Take a small step at a time. And then, have a graded exposure in a psychiatric parlance, graded exposure, and see where the rabbit hole goes, and be responsible for certain elements of your performance. When failure happens, it's okay. Accept, talk about it, own your part without shame. Talk about the parts that wasn't anyone else's fault. What would rigid boundaries work look like? Leaving control slowly, allow others to contribute. Try something together in which something neither of you are good. So you feel you are also learning, the other person also thinks that they see that you are also struggling, and it kind of eases situation. I encourage a lot of families to do this together, It helps to see father not having all the answers or mom not being a superwoman. It helps. It helps. They are kind to themselves. They feel, oh, they can also learn and become better at it. Gently encourage yourself to continue trying, even if you shut down after criticism, because you have a rigid boundary and you shut down, but be gentle with yourself. Allow yourself to be guided and seek guidance about other opinions and options. Work on project where your limitations are tested. Do something that you've not done before with people whose capacity you don't know. It really helps. Or work on project where people are better than you. You know that they are better than you. And you have this rigid boundary, but you need to work on it. So if they help you, they actually help you. And uncertainty is normal. It's okay. So create a little bit of space for indecision within you. So what are the things that we can do in a rule in general so that we have healthy boundaries? Is first, your limits. Identify your physical, emotional, spiritual limits. Consider and know what you can tolerate, accept, and what are the things that make you feel comfortable or makes you stressed. Know those, because our feelings help us identify our boundaries. If you're not sure of where you stand, it's because we are some boundaries being violated. Which are those 5-6 boundaries that we talked about? Was it physical? Was it intellectual? Was it emotional, material, time, sexual? What was it? Right? Because after all, our boundary management is our problem. And for that, we have to observe our feelings, recognize the importance of your feelings. I have the entire feeling wheel here just to tell you the range. When we are children, we can feel only those basic sad, mad, glad, angry. But afterwards, when we grow, we have secondary, not only primary emotions, we have secondary emotions. And as we become fully functional after 25 years of age, 25 years of age, we have tertiary emotions. So let's watch our emotion. Let's figure out what is it that is really bothering us. Um, why do I feel love for my dog? Is it because of tenderness? Is it because of caring? Because the dog elicits tenderness in me, and I want to care, and or because I'm getting in touch with the compassionate part of myself. See, the more the awareness, the better the understanding. If you do not pay attention to your feelings, it's very easy to get, start feeling resentful. So emotional boundaries come from understanding feelings, because they all are about respecting and honoring this energy within us. Setting good boundaries would mean how much emotional energy, how much emotion of someone else you are capable of taking in, and knowing when to share, when not to share, limiting emotional sharing with people who respond poorly. Why do we need to talk to people who have no idea about ourselves? I've seen people, an elderly woman in a in a food store. I was standing with my cart. She was ahead of me, and she was talking continuously about her difficulties in the house, and how much difficult it is for her. And the lady who was passing and doing us, she was hurrying up and trying to get rid of her, because she doesn't want to listen to what your difficult life stories. Talk to people who are really genuinely interested in you. And if you take advantage of the social support that you have, there are psychologists also who are available if you want confidentiality. Don't have to talk to strangers. Be aware of your emotions and your need, right? If people are responding poorly to what you're sharing, why do you need to share? Respecting emotional boundary means validating feelings of others and making sure you respect their ability to take in emotional informations as well. It's not just about you, it's about others also, right? Learn assertiveness, topic very close to my heart. Yeah. So it's not just enough to create boundaries, and you have to follow through. And how do you do that? By being assertive. Assertive is a way in which you take care of your needs and other person's need without disrespect, right? So this Henry Cloud's quote that I like to say: you get what you tolerate. So we we know that other people are not mind readers, but we know that what hurts us, and are we able to say that in a firm, loving way, so that it's respectful and it takes care of everything? you know so this is something that is an acquired skill, but be aware of it. It's worth investigating. Can't stress this enough. If you don't listen to yourself, no one else will. Give yourself permission to set that boundaries and preserve it. Believe that you deserve respect. People deserve respect, you also deserve respect, right? So we might fear other people's response if we set, if we do not set appropriate boundaries at all. Many people believe that they should be able to cope with the situation or say yes because they are the good employee or the good son or the good daughter, even though they feel drained and taken advantage of. So you may wonder whether you even need a boundary in the first place, because the other person is getting so hurt. uh, but if you allow others to treat you badly, and you believe that they are entitled to do so, are you being fair to yourself? Think about that. It helps to be aware of your past patterns and behaviors, definitely, because how you have been raised, what has been your caregiving style. If I have not reminded you enough about your attachment style, parenting style, here's another reminder. Think about the people that you are now surrounding yourself with, and check if the relationships are reciprocal or not. That's a good measure of your boundary. Check. Make a small beginning. Start small, but please start. You know, and then push your limits. The more you expand, more your growth. Start with a small boundary that isn't threatening to you, then incrementally change it. It takes courage, practice, and support. So take that support from your friends, from your family, from counselors, psychologists, whoever. Invest in yourself. It's worth it. Be with people who value you. Your social group is your mirror, reflecting your value back to you. You can surround yourself with selfish, difficult people who reflect very little self-worth, or you can surround yourself with caring, loving people who believe in you, that you are worthy of love and care. And what if someone doesn't? If they keep putting you down, and you can't ignore them, what do? Practice walking away. Some people are just too toxic to confirm. You don't have to fix everybody. Your job is not to fix everyone. No. And then prioritize self-care. Prioritize self-care. Physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself. When we were young, we did not have resources to do it for ourselves. But as adults, we have no excuse, especially if we have had the education and the opportunity, right? And make us aware. What is our excuse not to do self-care? When we do this, our motivation to set boundaries becomes stronger. Put yourself first. Putting yourself first gives you the energy, peace of mind, positive outlook, and you're more present in your relationship with everyone around you. And when we are in a better place ourselves, we can be a better friend, a better wife, a better mother, husband, co-worker, whatever it is that we want to be in our lives at that particular time. A better human being. So this, my friends, boundaries are about knowing your feelings and about honoring them. Thank you.
Right.